Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another Expat. This is episode 61. I am recording from my room here in Berlin, bringing random thoughts and news and silly facts for you on this fine day. I hope you are doing well, and another week, another podcast. I have to say the consistency is quite good, and consistency is important in a lot of different contexts. So, for example, I thought biking every day to work will get me back in shape because this version of me that you're listening is the heaviest version of myself that has ever existed. And for some reason, I think my phone is catching up with me like always because now I'm getting some Instagram ads that say, "We are looking for men that haven't worked out. For a complete transformation, sign up for this 90-day plan." And it has an AI middle-aged person who looks like jacked with abs and muscles and everything. It's a catchy title, right? I'm like, you're looking for men that have not worked out forever for a complete transformation? How can I be so lucky? This sounds exactly like me. But I think all of that as I scroll very quickly away to not give any more hints. But yes, I bike to work every day. It does nothing. Nothing has woken up yet inside of me after a few weeks of doing it. But it's fun to use the bike and observe what's happening around. So here's my favorite thing. I bike almost at the same time, so I see people having different habits. And my favorite thing is I love looking at people who are cleaning the space in front of their stores. So there are these store owners who want to have a nice and tidy entrance. So, they take it a little bit on them to clean the pavewalk in front. However, something I see more and more is that they're not swiping away the dirt. No, they have one of these air blowers that can just blow things around, and they spend their morning just blowing left and right all the dirt away from their entrance. And it's such a beautiful image to look. They just blow all the trash right across the line where their store stops. And it's still very much there. It's just a little bit on the side. It's a very entertaining thing to see. Is it still a problem? Very much so, but it's not their problem anymore. They just blow the dirt far away so that it's not their problem, and this is how they do the job. And I think that says a lot about the society we live in. Minimum effort, just push the problem out of your line and call it a day. Speaking of problems, one thing I like about me is my musical taste. I like the type of music I listen, no surprise there. And this is why I have enjoyed some parts of Spotify that introduce you to these daily mixes and these playlists that try to introduce new music to you that is close to your taste. However, that side is destroyed for me. It's done. Why? Because we have a baby now. And Spotify is taking a very central piece in our daily routines for lullabies, for classical music, even white noise. And now it has happened. My Spotify account got all messed up. I'm trapped in baby Spotify. My recommendations for the day are different lullabies and different children classical music and noises of, rain, white noise, pink noise, and brown noise. So this is what I get. I can't wait for next year Spotify Wrapped, where I am the top 0.1% listener of a song that is basically going to be like shushing sounds. Who thought of that? That's a smart idea. Just stay in front of a mic, shushing away for 8 hours, and then you have one of the most listened tracks out there. I'm just throwing ideas. And that's the world today. The world is filled up with crazy ideas. Here's one more that I saw recently. A German startup decided to launch a space capsule, right? Launching things in space has been very hot in the past years and continuing to be. But they thought, what are we going to send up there? People have sent all sorts of things. This German startup decided to send the remains, the ashes of dead people. And it was a big hit. 166 people paid to have the ashes of someone sent into space. And they named this mission Mission Possible. And keep that in mind, because that is such a great name for what happens next. So yes, the ashes of 166 people and some cannabis seeds. Can this be more Berlin-y? I don't know. But the cannabis seeds were there for some scientific research, maybe to see if we can grow weed on Mars once we get there. Everything seemed on track. The capsule successfully launched and it reached space. It did 2 orbits around the Earth and then it was set to return. But as it was returning, it went silent. They lost the signal. They lost the capsule. And the capsule tried to come back, but the parachute system failed. And the capsule crashed into the Pacific Ocean. And it vanished completely. They don't know where it is. What a wild disaster. You're selling a space trip for the deceased and then you end up crushing everything back on Earth. And now, instead of, them being in the stars, they are at the bottom of the sea. It's also pretty dark there. And you may wonder, how would the company deal with this? The damage control and the communication. Will they still label the mission a partial success, saying that they gathered valuable data? And they have already another launch planned. But they literally said, at the end of the day, the ashes were scattered across the sea, which is something that fits very well into how to do things. And this is what I would think as well. We aimed for the stars, we went in the sea, not the worst place it can go. But when you take the ashes of 166 people for a space ride, I think that getting it back to Earth should be a big part of the mission. But if you think this is crazy, wait until you see some of the letters that Donald Trump is sending to the world leaders, because apparently they have fired so many of the White House staff that who is left there is probably friends and family. Like when you send money on PayPal, you select just for friends and family and some AI. Because some of the letters that he's sending to world leaders, they were released, by the White House. And the text looks like something you would write at 6th grade. The grammar is all wrong. The punctuation is all wrong. And on top of it, these official White House letters, they are using capital letters for whatever word Trump thinks is important. So you have this random capitalization of words in that letter that reminds me how my dad is writing. He is in his mid-70s and he has this way of writing that whatever is important starts with a capital letter. So, creation and beauty and all of that. In Trump's letter, the capital words are trade, non-tariff, deficit. Whatever word he wants to make bold, he just makes it capital. And this is as close to idiocracy as we can get. But if you want to have a laugh, just look at the White House correspondence sent to the Prime Minister of Japan. It's just a one-page letter. Just read that out and tell yourself, this is how the White House talks to world leaders now. But of course, this is far from the bottom of the barrel. We have AI pictures of Trump as Superman being posted by the official White House account, while 14 million people will die in the next 5 years because of the human aid cuts he has done. He's adding some trillions of debt in this new bill that is cutting from Medicaid to the food programs, essentially doing one of the biggest wealth distributions that the US has seen. Rich people will get richer, poor people will get poorer, people are getting abducted by ICE agents. And poor New York, New York is trying to elect a guy named Mamdani. He's a social democrat. He managed to get the lead. And Trump literally has says that he will throw over this new mayor. He called him a communist and some other stuff. And I remember a few months ago, some scholars that were experts in fascism, they left the US. That was a few weeks after the inauguration. And they said this is heading step by step to an authoritarian, totalitarian type of regime. We've seen the steps, we know them, we're out. And I was thinking, wow, that's such a big move. You have positions, you work in universities, you have families, and you're just leaving. How bad can it get? And now I'm thinking, could this be just half a year in? How will 4 years from now look like? But this is where things are, and hey, the people have voted, so good luck to everyone. Everyone is gearing up. Everyone is buying weapons and defenses. The tariffs are stopping the trade. We might not be able to send olive oil and feta to the US, which is not the end of the world. We'll just keep the good olive oil and feta. We don't need to share with everyone. And these days good food is hard to find. Which brings me to the next topic. In Berlin, the most famous Berlin kebab, the Mustafa's Gemüse kebab, might be taking a hit. So this is a super famous kebab. It has a super long line all the time. Even Kanye West went there, although that could be a reason to not go there. But this is the most famous kebab. And apparently, it's closing. These were the headlines. Oh my God, the Mustafa's. It even sparked the name of a chain of restaurants in Spain, and it's such a famous one. But it's closing, and apparently I opened the link, I opened the article, and I'm like, oh my God, where is this kebab going? And it's not fully closing, it's just opening across the street. But the headlines, and I've seen them in multiple places, they talk about, oh wow, it moved across the street. Does this mean it's still the same? Will the queue follow? Will people still queue up for Mustafa's kebab now that it has moved a few meters away? And I find this such a ridiculous one. First of all, I think these articles are creating a problem, even though there wasn't a problem. If I arrived at that station and I looked for the Mustafa's kebab and I was like, I think it was here. And then I look across the street and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's there. I wouldn't have a problem. But now, with all these Berlin headlines saying, oh, the historical kebab is going to close, and now it's going to be different, it's going to be a few meters away, does this mean that it has lost its thing? I'm finding it ridiculous because I guess there is a chance that people will say, okay, this is different, we stop going, and that would be such a fun end. More things are changing in Berlin. Another burning issue is that the Next Bike will stop. Now, Next Bike is a company that is publicly funded, and it has bikes everywhere. You can easily rent them, like a Lime thing, but more chill. It's more cheap, it's more German, it just exists there. And apparently, the Next Bike will stop. It's not gonna be publicly funded anymore, it's gonna shrink. And many people say that it's a signal of the city's deflating status. So after a decade of this program running, it's now gonna shrink even more. I personally like the rental bike ideas. I also used Donkey Republic, which is another service in Copenhagen and also in Berlin. But that one also went down. And as someone said, can we just keep the bikes and dump all of these obnoxious scooters? Because the bikes, all the shared bikes I've seen, they always park them in nice places, while the scooters are being left everywhere, left and right. Now, I don't worry too much about this. I have my shitty bike. I use it all the time. But when friends and people are visiting, this was the easiest choice. You just get the next bike, drive a bit around, do your touristy things and call it a day. So if you are in Berlin and you didn't know, Next Bike will soon sunset. Now, 2 more pieces and I stop. The previous podcast was me complaining a lot and sharing personal story of my airport nightmares. So I thought for this one, I'll just share some of the things that drew my attention last week. And these could be at the top of the list. It's a new video game, and the concept of it is lovely. It's made by a South African studio, and the players are finding themselves in a major museum. And in that museum, through the walls, there are, all sorts of African artifacts. And they are artifacts that were stolen. So in this video game, which looks a little bit like Tomb Raider or Prince of Persia, it features a crew that are actually there to take back the stolen artifacts from Western museums and repatriate them to the peoples from whom they were taken. And that's the whole premise of the video game. You just go in the museums and you steal the art that was stolen from you and you repatriate it back to Africa by looting Western museums. I love this idea. I am Greek, so we have a lot of artifacts being exhibited without the country's permission. Cough, cough, British Museum. And yeah, just the idea of it, because there's an audacity in it. There's an audacity in building a game that says we go steal the art that was stolen and we bring it back home. So yes, I think I might be checking that out. I guess the UK levels will probably be some of the most difficult ones to pass in this game. Countries keeping artifacts taken from other countries during colonialism or just unfair times is so weird. Especially today, because there are so many ways to replicate objects so that visitors can still appreciate and learn from them, or they could have official loaning agreements so the countries that these things come from are actually benefiting from it. One user called it the Grand Theft Auto from art. Good stuff. All right. In the last piece of news, I covered 2 episodes ago, I think, the huge farming scandal that's happening in Greece. Basically, with the help of the ministry and the organization that was supposed to be distributing the EU funds to the farmers, a whole system was set that for decades was claiming false numbers of land, false numbers of animals, declaring even the Mount Olympus itself as a farming area and just giving millions and millions to those who were favoring the system. Many systems like this exist in Greece with the sole purpose of gathering votes. Voting in exchange of things is insanely common in Greece, and maybe not so much in Athens or the city center, but every single person you know will probably know someone who benefited in some way from a politician at some point in time. But the scale of this and the efforts put and the unfairness of this money not going to the rightful farmers was so wild that the EU prosecutor had to come in and intervene. And now they are trying to see who they can hold accountable. Ministers were resigned, and the effort that is being done to shush this is insane. So here's a tiny update on that. The person within that organization who worked in showing all the fraud that was happening, she had reported that to her superiors, and then she was moved departments. Her laptop was confiscated, and they made her life miserable and tried to silence her. She worked with the EU prosecutor, so then when things were unable to be hidden anymore, the whole thing blew out of proportion. And this organization, the organization that was defrauding the system, the one responsible for distributing the funds, what did we do to her? They put her on unpaid leave because she broke the confidentiality rules of the organization. This is the level of corruption, of audacity, of surrealism that exists in Greece. If you do your job well, you are punished for it. So now they're trying to put all the evidence together to see how extended this was. And as this is happening, this is real. You can Google this. I'm not making this up. The organization ditched 1 truck full of files. It's caught on camera in Thessaloniki, where they had their warehouse with the records. They are throwing everything from the balcony to a recycling truck. Again, this is the official organization that was responsible for distributing the EU funds to farmers. They are destroying all the evidence in plain sight. They say that it was scheduled and that it's records that are going for recycling. And the TV crews were there to film it, but the police was not there to stop them. So this is the level of surrealism we're talking about. In a country whose government is exceptionally good at doing damage control and handling the communication of every single scandal that has happened, perpetuating a corrupt system that benefits the few in expense of the many, and covering it up while at the same time accusing and blocking anyone who tries to bring truth to the light. This is the OPKP scandal that's happening in Greece. Maybe we need to make a video game where a team of Greeks is doing heists in federal buildings and parts of the government, stealing data and showing the corruption. And in each mission, depending on what scandal you manage to surface, you get points based on how many people are going to jail and how much money you manage to save from going into the black hole of this corrupt system. And with this beautiful Sunday evening thought, I think I will end up for today. It was probably a lot, but like the person that's cleaning the dirt in front of their house, only for it to sit on the line right next to them on some other person's house. In the same way, I'm also, putting things out there. I'm not solving anything. All of these are still problems. I just gave them a bit of a push. Until next week, I hope that my Spotify will give me some real music recommendations, that startups will stop sending anything imaginable to space, or if they do, they at least manage to bring it back. That Mustafa gets to keep his Kebab stand, or ride away on a next bicycle into oblivion. This has been me. This has been you. As always, thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, consider rating it on Spotify, sharing it to someone, or leaving me a comment somewhere. Until next week, ciao!